Hey, what's going on, guys? All in China, host Sega Forever. I'm gonna do a video that's a little bit outside the box, but something that I've been wanting to do on my channel. I've talked about it ad nauseum for the last couple of years, and I've actually done videos like these before, but I'm gonna be a little bit more consistent. And the video we'll be doing is, as you can see, we're gonna be talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. And full disclosure, I did not watch the movie, so this isn't really a review. But my kids got to see it, and their mom took them, which is really good for me. Because I'm pretty much done with Phase 4. Like I said, full disclosure. Um, Probably phases 1 through 3 that Marvel did, especially Phase 1, probably my favorite Marvel phase. And with 1 through 3, I like what Marvel did, especially being a Marvel fan that I am. Grew up reading the comic books. So, when they announced Phase 4, of course, I was looking forward to what they were going to do. And I've done videos talking about it because what I was thinking Marvel would do as far as going into the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're not doing any of that. And some of the stuff they announced, even though I had reservations about the stuff they were saying, I was going to give it a chance. But a couple movies removed, and then after Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, even though Sam Raimi was attached to it, and they had some other things that was giving me a little bit of hope. Deep down inside, I had, I was worried. I had concerns for the movie, and actually, I did not plan to watch it. Um, but because my kids want to watch it, and like I said before in other videos, whether it's movies, um, video games, just anything, even though I might not like it or whatever, if my kids want to go and watch a movie or buy a certain game or even a system, because you guys know I'm a pro Xbox channel, but if my son wanted to get a PlayStation, I could. Like my daughter has a Switch, so I'm not going to put my hang-ups on my kids. And I learned as a parent it's best for the kids to experience stuff for themselves. Stuff that that won't harm them or anything like that. You guys know what I mean. But so they went to go watch Thor: Love and Thunder, and it was kind of funny because my son liked it. He thought it was entertaining. Um, and in that, when I mean entertaining, it's, my son's at that age where he's just doing a lot of different things, hanging out with his friends, playing sports. He does drums, guitar, he takes guitar lessons, all this kind of stuff. And so he's constantly doing stuff. So when he says to me the movie's entertaining, I understand that he means he enjoyed it for that time, but like some of the reviewers you see, right, it's just going to be a passing fancy. It's a movie you watch, you enjoyed it, but you're not going to remember it a week from now. And for my son, he just already moved on to doing other things. For my daughter, it's kind of funny. She was telling me she thought it was okay, had some problems with it. Like her dad, she's kind of a Marvel fan, but she's also into anime and does a lot of. She wants to be an artist. She wants to work in anime. She's actually pretty talented when it comes to her own art and stuff like that. So she has a different kind of perspective. And so she's kind of like me. She sees the plot holes in things, and when things doesn't make sense, or um, and that's anybody, as you can tell by the middling reviews, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Um, but both of them agreed that I would not like this movie, so I'm glad that they got to go with their mom. I have Disney Plus, so that's another reason why. So I could check it out when it goes on Disney Plus. I was gonna do the same thing, like I said, with Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness. Ended up going to the theater on that one. And with Thor: Love and Thunder, though, there's just so much stuff being said about it. For me personally, my own personal hangups as a Marvel comic book fan, because I am a huge Marvel fan. I know a lot of people who watch my videos and I claim to be a Marvel fan, they get a little bit upset because they're like, if you're a Marvel fan, why do you complain so much about Marvel? And, just think of it this way. For me, it's not complaining, it's passion. Because I grew up in this universe, man, and it started off with the comic books. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. And actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about that when it comes to these reviews, right? So like I said, did not watch the film. I'm not going to review it because I did not watch it. But the thing that I find interesting is that I've been watching other people's reviews, especially people that I trust, and I kind of have the same opinions on. So it's not like they're talking stuff that's outside of the ordinary, and it is kind of mixed. Because there's people that I know that didn't like the movie overall, but they found little bits of hope in the movie that they liked. But as you can see by the score, it's the critic score right now 68. The audience score is a little bit higher at 79. Normally with these Marvel movies, the critics are a little bit more harsher, and of course the Marvel fan base, as far as the MCU is concerned, and I mean MCU by Marvel Cinematic Universe, the scores tend to be like at least 10 to 15 points higher. And there's a lot of things about the Marvel movies that their fans really like. And that general audiences like too, man. I mean, Marvel just doesn't make they just don't make this kind of money on just their rabid fan base, which I understand they have one in the cinematic sense, right? But they do appeal to a wide spectrum of people, and that's why when you see a score like this, um, there's a lot of things to unpack. And like I said, I'm not going to review the movie, just talk about some of the reactions, because that's the thing that seems interesting to me. Because it's funny for myself, who's been seeing the direction that Marvel's been going, has been seeing the direction that Disney's been going, and not just with Marvel, but with their own content, to include Star Wars, of which I'm a huge fan. Um, if you guys been watching the content they've been making lately, it's not very, it's more agenda driven, right? They're looking at things from a different perspective. Kevin Feige has said so much on the Marvel side, how he wants to kind of leave his mark. Kevin Feige, as a producer, he comes I don't say he comes from that old school, but these guys have a lot of respect for a person like Stan Lee. And if you study the life of Stan Lee, given the time that he lived and a lot of the stuff on how he's influenced comic books, I mean, Stan Lee was one of the first people to go against the comic books code. A lot of people talk about the influence of X-Men is when it comes to racial injustice. I think it's a little bit more overplayed in this day and age. I mean, I grew up reading X-Men. It definitely was a soapbox, but it was a soapbox not just for when you say injustices. It was inclusion, and that means inclusion of everybody, not just of color or race. It's if you're a nerd, a geek, it's anybody who felt outcast could identify with, and I think that's what made the X-Men appealing. It definitely made it appealing to me, right? So it doesn't matter like whether what type of outcast you were. You felt like you were at home with the comic book, and that shows because it's garnered so many fans for so many decades. So when I look at what Kevin Feige is doing now, it's almost like he wants to mimic Stan Lee. The only problem is Stan Lee grew up in a time when there was actual issues with civil rights and stuff like that. That he was a very powerful force, especially in pop culture. So you have this revisiting of that time. The only problem is that we're in a modern age now, and a lot of this stuff just doesn't hit home. And unfortunately, when I look at these scores and I look at some of the reviews that people are having, and I'm not talking about the hardcore people, right? You have their hardcore, like I said, Marvel guys who are making excuses for this film. Then you have the people that are just absolutely hate Marvel, that are, they're not wrong in this sense. I'll be honest with you, but they just don't like anything that Marvel puts out. That's just their thing. Where I find interesting, again, when you see the 68% and the 79%, the closest that these two have been since Thor Dark World, right? As far as critics versus audience score. The thing that sticks out to me is like the people in the middle, right? The normies, I love to call them on this channel. And I don't mean that derogatory wise. I'm just being honest with you. These are just the people who don't live live in these universes or in these worlds as deep as others do. And I guess a better word to use is they're not in the fandom. Whether it be Halo, Xbox, Nintendo. The hardcore people that we know, guys like us, right? Like my channel is Xbox All In. I'm a hardcore Xbox fan, right? And even hardcore Sega fan. I mean, even more so, right? So I'm talking about people like that who keep up with this kind of stuff. In the event of comic books, they read the comic books, they know the lore, right? They know the mythology, they love the world building, they get lost in the world building. Even though they might like these guys kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so like they'll go watch a Marvel movie, but they're not necessarily the guys that buy the sideshow statuettes or buy Funko Pops. They actually read the comic books, right? They actually buy the video games when they come out. Because if that was the case, a lot of this stuff would translate across genres, and that's how you know something's really popular now in pop culture, right? When it supersedes, when it breaks barriers, and when it crosses those lines, when they cross the streams. Okay, so and the funny thing to me is with a lot of these guys, when they're talking about their review, you can tell they're struggling, right? Because it's not like they really hated the movie, but they didn't actually like it either. They're kind of sitting there wondering why they feel that way. I mean, I've watched so many reaction videos to this movie, and again, I'm talking about the normies now. And as I sat there and watched that, it blew my mind because these are the guys that are like, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they'll say something like, but I just can't put my finger on it. And that's the whole purpose for me doing this video, right? Is to let you know why you guys feel that way. And the reason why you guys feel that way is it's really this simple. Is that because you guys are becoming you're becoming your own fandom, right? So where I, as a comic book guy, growing up on Marvel and comic books in general, I'm talking across the board, right? There's certain foundational stuff as a comic book fan that you expect from a comic book. Now, given the day and age that we're in, you're not exactly getting that, right? I mean, it's across the board. It's all over the place. Stuff that's canon is not respected. World building that's been done is just being trodden on. And that's what I look at as a guy leaving phases 1 through 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and going into phase 4. Now, the thing that I find interesting is that when I talk about these kind of things, right, there's the normies who kind of you have to deal with, right? These are the guys that kind of did the blowback, the hardcore Marvel sycophants, right? That'll be in your comment section, or if you're in a discussion thread on some kind of social media site, right, you end up arguing with these guys because no matter what, Marvel does no wrong. So the thing that they're dealing with now, which I find ironic, is because they're kind of like us, the people that are actually in the fandom, you know, who read the comic books, who know the lore, who know the origins, and all that, you know, and all that. And even though I can sit there, like in phases 1 through 3, and look at what Marvel was doing. I mean, they took a lot of liberties with stuff, but it was the core and the foundational stuff that appealed to me, and actually what sold them, and actually built the empire they have now, right? And the funny thing is that because so many average people came and they became so big, they kind of forgot that. And I'm talking about Marvel proper, right? They kind of forgot that, and so what they find themselves in there now is that a lot of the fans that they built up in the cinematic universe are actually struggling with canon, which I find, again, ironic, right? Because these are the same people that when you bring up canon, or you bring up history, or you bring up origins, these are guys who try and smack you down. But because, you know, I don't know if a lot of you guys realize this, but Marvel's been around for over 10 years, right? They just had their 10-year anniversary, so I think they're at like 12 years right now. So there's been all these generation of fans that they've been able to touch, right, over these years, that they've actually built their own canon within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, these guys won't know, you know, why Thor is the way he is, or why Loki does the things he does. They probably never read some of the best stuff that's ever been put out there. Marvel kind of takes the best storylines from these characters and kind of incorporates them in the movies, right? But they don't get the full effect of it unless they read the comic book, right? So they've never experienced canon on that level. But because, like I said, it's been 10 years that Marvel's been doing this, there's a canon that they've been establishing, you know, which started with Infinity War. And then, you know, there's a lot of people that talk out there, and I'm not saying it's not true or not, about how this was kind of a one-off. I've known I heard Kevin Feige talk about it at the ending scene of Iron Man when Nick Fury talks about the Avenger Initiative. It's something they kind of just threw out there, but it became a reality. And it's been successful for Marvel in the cinematic universe. Unfortunately, that's the one thing that's kicking them in the ass right now, and that's the one thing that a lot of these fans are dealing with, and they don't know why. It's because you guys are kind of like semi-comic book fans. Because like I said, you've had 10 years to ingest this kind of stuff. Marvel has created a formula, and I'm not talking just about the formula, how people get upset about how the movies are too funny, the one-offs, right? The way they just shred certain things, take what they need, just shell it out, and then toss the rest away. I'm talking about an actual timeline of things where the average person not reading the comic books wouldn't know, but because they've kind of done that in the cinematic universe, these people now have expectations of what and who Thor is. Or like when they see something as massive as the Infinity War, right, or even Endgame, when there's things were brought back to a conclusion, but it's still like any other comic book. It leaves all these open threads that you can explore, which Marvel never did. And then they're running up against that because there's people that have watched these movies for so long that are like, wait a minute, so Thanos snapped half the universe. Then everybody came back. So what was the ramifications of that? You know, why is this person not, you know, affected by this, right? And that's a lot of stuff that people are having problems with Thor. And not to get into the whole multiverse of it, right? But just the Thor movie itself, you see people complaining because a lot of the stuff just doesn't make sense, or because they watched the other movies and they see what Thor's doing now, that doesn't make sense, or storylines are not following through. There's a ton of plot holes, right? And just seeing these guys struggle, you know, I'll be honest with you, I kind of feel sorry for them, right? Because they don't understand, and it's hard to explain to them, right? Because you know they just get defensive. and stuff like that, and just call you a hater. I become worse than a hater, trust me. When it comes to this kind of stuff, but I do feel sorry for them, man. I would love to help them out. Um, but maybe they'll see this video. I don't know. Um, for those of you guys who actually follow my content or follow me on social media, and you're struggling in the same way because you're not as hardcore of a Marvel fan as I am, but you still don't understand why you don't like this movie. Like, it has the things you think that you would make, like the movie, like what my son said, a lot of action, very entertaining, right? Chris Helmsworth is perfect as Thor. He loves Chris Helmsworth as Thor, and they've changed the character of Thor throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When you first meet Thor, he's like the prodigal son in Thor: Dark World. Well, that movie's just more or less for the Infinity stuff. But when you meet him in Ragnarok, right, and then even in Ragnarok, he's like trying to find himself. In Infinity War, he's struggling with what happened with Thanos, right? And so he's been through a myriad of different characters. But the one thing that's always kept it together was that Chris Helmsworth acting as Thor, and then the basic tenets of Thor that they set up in the very first movie. And it looks like with Ragnarok, they've just thrown that all down the they just pushed it all down the toilet. So yeah, I don't know, man. Hopefully this is a wake-up call to Marvel. Like I said, I'm a Marvel fan, right? I'm very passionate about my stuff, dude. And like a lot of you guys out there who are struggling with this movie and actually looking now for the first time with open eyes, like what's really wrong with Marvel, the direction that Marvel's going with. And I'm not just talking about the movies, the television shows are, if I'm trying to be nice, is like, mediocre. If I'm being nice, if I'm not being nice, they're boring and they suck, low budget. Ugh. It's just like something, I'll put it this way, as a Marvel fan, I should look forward every time that there's a Marvel television show on Disney Plus. I subscribe to Disney Plus, and it's sad for me because I'm more of a hardcore Marvel fan than I am a Star Wars fan. I'm being honest. That's probably why I'm a lot harder on Marvel. But I don't look. Every time there's a new show, I should be day one watching. But I just don't care. I'm just sticking around to see what's happening with Star Wars. In fact, I hate to say this, but for Disney Plus, I'm more excited with all the drama that's happening behind the scenes with Star Wars than I am the actual shows that Disney's producing. So I can leave this where it is. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to watch the show. I don't even know if I want to watch this movie. When it hits Disney Plus, because the bottom line is for me, it's just me as a Marvel fan. I'm not the audience that they want. The direction that Marvel's going in with all the SJW stuff, right? They want that clientele, right? With all, the gay agenda stuff that they do, they definitely want that as well. And I mean, you guys can save the equality stuff from me, dude. I mean, it's targeted, right? And I would respect them if it's a business, thing, but it's definitely their ideology. And you got to look at the people who are running these shows. And look, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? And at the end of the day, you need your fandom. Right. And this is and it's not just comic books that are going through this, it's also video games, right? These people are forgetting the actual customers that got them to where they are. Because the people that you're trying to get now, those guys can come and go, man. This stuff all falls apart, they won't care. They'll just move on to the next thing. It's the fans, right? It's the fans that have been with Marvel for years, like myself. But and that's why I consider and say that these Phase 4 is made for a new kind of audience. Unfortunately, you'll find out real quick, like the Star Wars, like they're finding out with Star Wars that fans like us are the ones that pay the bills, right? Fans like us are the ones that'll go out there and buy the merchandise, because we're so engrossed into what they build. But if you're not giving us what we want, then we just walk away. And it's easy, man. I'm just to tell you one thing, as a person who, like I said, this is a pro Xbox channel. I'm kind of stepping outside the box here to talk about this kind of stuff. But eventually, I'll incorporate more pop culture stuff into this channel. And I can tell you, as a pop culture fan, when I'm not getting something from someplace, I just go somewhere else. Like for me right now, and I talk about this on my channel all the time, where I go right now is Game Pass. I can literally just play Game Pass every single day because of I can't because I got stuff I got to do. But if I didn't have anything to do and I couldn't rely on any other form of entertainment, Game Pass will cover my every single need, right? Because it has a variety of games, right? It has over I don't know how many games. They're just constantly dropping games at this thing. I struggle just managing my time trying to get through different games. but they're giving me, Xbox with Game Pass is giving me what I want at a more than reasonable price. The variety, the quality is all there, right? And this is the kind of stuff that these guys got to think about. Look, the economy's bad right now. You can't afford to not bring your best. You can't to bring your A game, man. That's what happens in times like these. The competition will be fierce, and for something like the streaming services, they should be knocking it out of the park because a lot of people are staying home, and this it's changing. It's not as we're not as locked down as we used to be, right? But there is a cultural shift that happened with the lockdown. So the customers that they have, they're going to continue, but in order to continue, you got to get great content. And like I said, if Game Pass, I don't see that happening. But if Game Pass fails or doesn't give me what I want, I can just move on to something else. Like right now, I'm on Netflix all the time. I'm watching a lot of the Korean shows. I like Korean pop culture and their content. I can switch over to anime because of what Japan's doing with their pop culture and their content. Right? And hopefully these guys wake up, man, because they're not the only game in town anymore. And like I said, when money's tight, I'm sorry, but a movie's not going to feed you. It's not going to feed your kids. Not going to put a roof over your head. Right? Not going to pay the bills. Right? Where I live, everything's up more than 50%. Right? I'm paying prices for stuff I never thought I would pay. Utilities is through the roof, and you got to factor all that kind of stuff in. And then you want me to go watch a movie, right? Time is limited, right? Because now we got to work a little bit extra, pay a little bit more. So time is precious. Time is a commodity, right? And if you want me to give you part of my time, not just my money, you got to come correct, man. You got to knock it out of the park. That's just the way of the world. Anyway, this video ran really long. Sorry. I'll work on that for future videos, but hopefully you like the content I'm going to start to bring. Because the bottom line is I like doing stuff like this. Like I said on my channel before, if I'm not doing stuff I don't like, I just can't continue on. Right? I got to be a little bit, passionate about the things that I put up on my channel. So let me know what you guys think down below, man. If you guys actually saw the movie and you liked it, definitely let me know. If you did not like it, you can do that too. Let me know. Like I said before in my last video, it's not just about getting subscriptions, man. I really want to engage people, right? In a respectful manner, right? And we can debate and we can disagree. I have no problem with that, dude. If you guys follow me on social media, man, you guys know where I'm at. I mean, politically, culturally, right? Spiritually, I'm down for discussing anything, to be honest with you. And as long as we keep it respectful, that's fine. And by respectful, I don't mean you have to agree with me. It's not what I'm saying, right? Just come to a general consensus and agree to disagree, and then let our viewpoints be heard. But man, if you love Thor Love and Thunder, I definitely would want to hear why. So my next video I'm going to be talking about is basically it's going to be Blood in the Water, and you can see the cultural shift when it comes to Marvel. Because if you guys did not remember this, because I was day one when Marvel was doing all this kind of stuff, because Marvel actually was under Paramount, and then they took a big gamble. And if that first Iron Man movie did not take off, man, this we'd never have any of this. But at that time, man, Iron Man, even though it got critical acclaim, right, and it was a good one-off, right, and then people acknowledged it and it made money. A lot of people in the Hollywood media, they were like an attaboy for that one. But as Marvel was building up steam, dude, a lot of people in Hollywood hated it for a lot of various reasons, none of which is, it was taking away thunder from other movies, right? And then we find ourselves in the situation we are now. So I think Marvel should open up their eyes because a lot of these media people are not their friend. I mean, it's Hollywood. What do you expect? And so it'd be interesting because little by little, you see the critics actually coming out because the way the Marvel movies work, right? They have their rabid fan base, who would go to bat for them. But when you have the fan base kind of wondering what's going on, basically what I talked about in this video, and you see a lot of articles dropping now where the media is getting a little bit more brave in their critique of the Marvel movies. So anyway, if you're one of those people that like Thor Love and Thunder, yeah, I definitely would like to hear why. And you know what? I might even do a podcast, bring back my pop culture podcast just to discuss these kind of things. But anyway, again, 24 minutes, very long. And again, I will work on this. But yeah, if you watched the video, thank you. And again, share your opinions down below. Xbox All In channel, we're back. I am your host, Sega Forever, and we're out.